Damian Lillard has been traded to the Milwaukee Bucks in a blockbuster deal. And I think it is absolutely shocking that it is Milwaukee. Now, if you read the tea leaves, obviously Giannis and Dame had been exchanging pleasantries for a part of the summer, but I don't think anybody saw the Milwaukee Bucks moving Jrue Holiday to Portland, essentially in exchange for Damian Lillard. And we'll talk about the Suns part of this in a minute, but it is stunning that Damian Lillard did not end up in Miami. He did not end up in Toronto. He did not end up with the Knicks. Damian Lillard ended up in Milwaukee with Giannis Antetokounmpo in what could be his best opportunity to win a championship. But here's the problem with that. Did this trade make the Phoenix Suns better? That, I think, is the biggest question. And do the Suns end up with Jrue Holiday at the end of the day? Because Portland's not going to hang on to Jrue Holiday in this deal. Portland is looking to go young. They are going to rebuild. They certainly are not going to hang on to Jrue Holiday, which I think there is no doubt would impede the growth and development of Scoot Henderson in Portland. This is another trade in the making. Will Phoenix swoop in? I think that's a very interesting question, but there is no doubt now, with DeAndre Ayton finally gone from Phoenix, and it feels 2 years overdue at this point. CP3's gone. DeAndre Ayton's gone. You have a new head coach. You have a changing of the guard. But, Jake, as different as things now seem in Phoenix, it does seem like they are the true winner of the Dame trade.
Yeah, I mean, I just think they're in an ideal position to go out and contend for a championship. And not to say that, you know, Milwaukee's not, or that this was bad for Milwaukee. Obviously, it was really good for Milwaukee. Obviously, this is the type of move that you would assume would incentivize Giannis to sign his deal. I think he's almost obligated at this point to sign that extension. But I think for Phoenix, the biggest thing is now, you know, figuring out chemistry. Hey, how can we get all these new faces and new guys to gel together? We've seen this before. We see it in Lakerland all the time. You see it in the teams that usually contend every year. They add new faces. They make the big move because they're always chasing the championship. And so the question at hand really for Phoenix to me is, how do we get these guys to gel together? Not only Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, but the new additions as well. Because I think this Bradley Beal or Brad Beal coexistence with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant is going to be crucial to their success. They have to find a way to share reps. But what I love about this deal for Phoenix is that Yusuf Nurkic and Grayson Allen add this level of toughness Phoenix hasn't had in I don't know how long. You've always had a superstar in Devin Booker. You've always had the ability to score the ball, but you've always been that team that's talked, a lot, like with Dallas. And then you got blown out because you weren't a gritty team. Dallas outworked you. Dallas was a tougher team that day. So that's what I like about this deal for Phoenix. And I think that, for Devin Booker, now is the time, right? Seize the moment. I don't know. We want to talk about with Dame, like this is his best opportunity to win a championship, and I completely agree with that. But I think inside of this deal, Devin Booker is one of those guys that's got to get the job done. He's still on the outside looking in. He's still somebody that hasn't been able to get over the hump. And by the way, how fitting is it that they lost to Milwaukee in the NBA Finals? So that's why I think when we talk about, hey, they need to go out and try to take a run at Jrue Holiday, I do think that's super important because you're going to need somebody other than Devin Booker to go bring the ball up, initiate the offense so that way the coaching staff can draw up play after play for different guys to score because these guys are going to have to share the ball.
Yeah.
And that's difficult.
Yeah, but I think when you look at Portland's end of this, Jrue Holiday, DeAndre Ayton's a guy that you can plug into that lineup for the next 3 years and build around him. They have young talent through the draft, but something we cannot overlook in this Damian Lillard trade. This is absolutely the end of an era. There is nothing about this that is good news for Portland Trailblazer fans. Damian Lillard was a guy that should have and could have won a championship in Portland. I put 80% of this on the death of Paul Allen, the former owner of the Portland Trailblazers. I think that's where Damian Lillard's fortunes in Portland changed, but there is little doubt. this is the end of an era. It's a sad end of an era because it shouldn't have happened. But I think it was really important for the Portland Trailblazers and their fan base to move on from this situation. It had been hanging over the franchise now for the better part of 18 months. You know, obviously with his demand this summer to go to Miami, I don't think that was ever working out, and I don't know how many of you saw the news, but there are reports out there now that Pat Riley never made a real offer to Portland for Damian Lillard. I'm sure Jimmy Butler's thrilled about that. But you look at this situation in Portland, basketball, specifically the NBA and the Pacific Northwest, is a disaster. Seattle still does not have the Sonics again. You're looking at Portland, who's been irrelevant pretty much since the end of their playoff runs with Dame and CJ. It just is a bummer because Portland, the Trailblazers, in the modern era of the NBA, have always been so close, yet so far away. And Damian Lillard has been such an amazing performer on the floor for Portland. It's really disappointing that this is how it ends. And I look at what Portland gets here in Jrue Holiday. He's not going to be there for long. The Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns, I'm told, are considered the front runners for Jrue Holiday. I don't know how much I love that for the Utah Jazz. I love it for the Phoenix Suns. We'll see what happens there. I mean, obviously, DeAndre Ayton, obviously the unprotected picks, obviously the pick swaps. Those are all real wins for Portland. But today is not about a win for Portland. It's a loss. Taking Damian Lillard out of your community is a loss. There's no way to spin that into positivity. Taking Dame out of Portland is a real loss for the Pacific Northwest. I think I look at Milwaukee. Here's my biggest question about this trade. And obviously, Damian Lillard is what you got in Milwaukee. But can you win a championship without Jrue Holiday? And have you fully thought about the importance of Jrue Holiday to that championship team and what he meant to that team? And I understand Damian Lillard's awfully clutch. I'm not questioning that in any way, shape, or form. But leadership is not something that you can put a price tag on in the NBA. I think Giannis has done some damage to his reputation, if you will, by not committing to Milwaukee. And I'm with Jake. I think now he has to sign an extension there. But Jrue Holiday was the glue on those Bucks that championship team, and all of these teams that made the championship runs here the last several years. Jrue Holiday, his value to that team was never fully appreciated. Mm-hmm. And when you look around and you look at the Middletons, the Antetokounmpos, who was the foundation there? It was Jrue Holiday. And I don't think Damian Lillard is the guy that can hold that team together singularly. I think Jrue Holiday did that at times. I think Damian Lillard's really clutch. But when you talk about leadership and clutch time, and what are you going to do with Giannis? Because Giannis no longer has to be that guy that takes 3 steps from half court and dunks on somebody. Because now he's got another alpha male on that roster. And I have real questions about how Dame and Giannis will fit together. I don't know if Chris Middleton can be healthy enough to contribute at the level that we're used to seeing him contribute. And then I look at Bropez and I say to myself, how long can that back hold up? How long can he physically be counted on to be a top 5 guy on this team? And I'd also remind you that as much as Grayson Allen is a pain in the ass, he brought grit and determination to that Bucks lineup. I think this is a real critical moment in time, and I understand that there's risk in every trade. This trade feels like boom or bust for the Bucks, and I'm trying not to be too sensational about it, but I just don't see Damian Lillard as the same guy in his 30s that he had been when CJ was in Portland. He's missed a lot of games. I think there are a lot more questions around Milwaukee today than there were yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was a certain reliability in the current setup you had, with Jrue and Chris. And obviously, they had faced some injury issues. Middleton obviously had been out for a while and missed significant time in the playoff run. And obviously a lot of that workload was on Giannis. And I think the questions, in my opinion, that surround this Bucks team are mostly injury related. Dame, like you just said, has been a guy that has played through some injuries and has frankly been out. But my question around Dame has always been, hey, is this guy out because he doesn't really have a huge incentive to play? Or is he out because he's actually out? That's what I think I'm waiting to see with Damian Lillard, because the reality of the situation is this is all cool, and we can all say that Milwaukee's the front runner now, and, Miami messed up, and the Knicks missed another one, and what the hell is Toronto doing? Like, we can say all of that, but the reality of the situation is it only matters who's there at the end. And look, I respect the hell out of Giannis. I think Giannis is the definition of get drafted, build your body, carry your organization, be the guy. This is not a Giannis complaint. But when we talk about this trade and how successful this can be, I agree. It is a boomer bust proposition. If Damian Lillard plays, let's call it 70 games in the regular season, and you find a way to rest him properly and you keep him as fresh as you can for the postseason, and it's a healthy Giannis and a healthy Dame, and we get 60% of what Chris Middleton used to be, and Bropez can do what he does. Okay, yeah, you've got the team to make a run, but I don't think this just auto bids them into the NBA Finals. Just the same way that Phoenix is going to have to figure out how to play together, I agree that Giannis and Dame are going to have to figure that thing out. But what I will say, Dame has always had to play with guys who are not the best in the league. He's always, outside of CJ McCollum, he's always played. Why do you not like that, dude? He's always played on crap teams. Always. He's always had one guy.
They've made bad roster. The reason the Portland Trailblazers didn't win a championship with Dame is they made bad roster decisions.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's always had the best roster. He's had guys. Let's not overlook the fact that Damian Lillard carries some of the responsibility about why the Blazers didn't win a championship. And if he goes into this situation in Milwaukee and they don't win a championship, that's not going to be on Giannis. It's going to be on Dame. Damian Lillard, did he deserve better? Sure. In Portland, yes, it would have been nice to see Portland build an all-in roster around him. I think they tried and they failed miserably. Again, I go back to the passing of Paul Allen. I don't think the caretakers have done a good job since Mr. Allen's passing, and I think it's really hurt the Portland Trailblazers. But Damian Lillard bears responsibility for this situation. They had a roster several times that could have won championships, and they did not. And Dame deserves some responsibility for that. I'm not saying he is at fault, because I don't believe that he is. But when you're making the money that Portland is paying or did pay Damian, and now Milwaukee's going to pay him, you bear responsibility there. I think that is a really important point. And then I look at Phoenix. I think Phoenix won this trade going away. Like, I look at Nurkic, and a lot of people today have wanted to rip Nurkic and say that he's not the same player. And who cares if he's the same player? What does Phoenix need Nurkic to be? They need him to be a rebounder, and they need him to be a defender. They do not need him to be an offensive stalwart. They frankly do not want him to be a guy who needs the ball. And not that he really ever has been that guy.
Yeah.
But when you have Kevin Durant, Brad Beal, and the sex machine Devin Booker, you don't need more offense from a five that's a lumbering five. He is a big dude that lumbers up and down the floor. And that's not who today's NBA game is. The NBA, and I was talking to somebody on Twitter about this today, the NBA today is a completely different style of offense than it was in 2017, 18, 19. It's a completely different style of league. And I think Nurk fits right into what Phoenix needs, because look what this trade did for the Phoenix Suns. This went from a soft-ass team who could not physically compete. They could not physically compete the last several years, to now one of the toughest, most physical, gritty teams in the West. You look at Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic, and Nasir Little. Those guys all have shoulders and elbows, and they know how to use them.
Yeah.
They're crafty players who understand their roles. Grayson Allen's a pain in the ass, but when he's on your team, you love him. And they loved him in Milwaukee. And I think the Phoenix Suns just won an NBA championship. They had depth issues. Those are all gone now. I think they had, outside of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, I think they had production issues. Those are all gone now. They have depth. They have production. They have three-point shooting across their roster now. Like, I love this deal for the Suns.
Yeah, and I think it like you said, I mean, it closes what largely was a chapter in the storybook of the franchise filled with failure. Honestly, like the Monty Williams era was super successful, but at the same time failed at the pinnacle of basketball. I mean, you just didn't get the job done. And then after that, the following season, DeAndre Ayton and Monty Williams want to have, barking matches on the bench, and it's just not a great look. And I think that's why ultimately James Jones and company decided to go ahead and move on from DeAndre Ayton. Not because DeAndre sucks, but more because he doesn't provide them what they need now. They don't need, like, DeAndre Ayton's biggest value as a basketball player is his offensive game. He's not known as a great defender. Yes, he's athletic. He can move, but he doesn't have instinctually, he's not a natural on defense. On offense, instinctually, he is an absolute natural and a game changer. They don't need more offense. They need more defense. And frankly, they need someone that's willing to drop a dude at the rim in certain type of situations. And DeAndre Ayton was never that guy. And so now I think if I'm the Phoenix Suns, all I'm trying to do is figure out, okay, on defense, how are we going to play pick and roll defense with Nurkic? Because ultimately, that's how teams play him. We saw the Trailblazers and Dame this past season in Salt Lake against the Jazz. What did the Jazz do? Even with where the Jazz are at, and I love where they're at, but even with where they're at, they pick and rolled him to death. And that's what I think you're going to have to figure out as a team. How are we going to mitigate that? But ultimately, I love this trade for Phoenix. I think it basically emphasizes, hey, you three guys are carrying the load. Like, you wanted some change. You wanted Book. You wanted guys on your team that could help you.
You didn't want Josh Okogie. You wanted Grayson Allen. Well, we went out and got that.
We went out and got him. So now it's on you guys to go put the ball in the hole and win a championship. And again, let's not forget about where Kevin Durant's at in his career, because I think people like to just forget that, KD's still got, in my opinion, some things to do, right? Like, if KD can win another championship, he can move on from the, hey, you could only win because you were a Warrior narrative. He can move on from some of those negative things. So Kevin Durant's incentivized. Devin Booker's incentivized. Certainly Mr. Brad Beal is incentivized. So that's why I say this is a win for the Suns. It's absolutely a win for Portland. They can move on from this Dame situation. And the only real question is, can Dame stay healthy in Milwaukee? Because if he stays healthy, they're going to be deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I will again say this is a tough day in Portland. This is a tough day in Portland. I think basketball in the Pacific Northwest deserves far better than it's gotten. And I think the last decade has been very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And I am hoping that the Portland Trailblazers do everything that they need to do to make sure that this is the beginning of something new in Portland. Because I look at your roster now, and I don't know what you do with Anthony Simmons. I don't know what you do with, Thibault and Scoot Henderson. And I love the young talent. But I just don't know what you do with some of these dudes that you got to find a way to move Jrue Holiday. And you're going to be bad for a long time. You're going to be bad for a long, long time. And I think this is just really difficult in Portland. That's really what it comes down to. All right, less of us, more of you. Let's get your thoughts in here on the Damian Lillard trade. Aaron Wilson, first up. What's poppin', boys? Made it to Gold Star finally. Wreck 'em. Let's go. 6 months in the membership.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go, Aaron. Good to see you. Real Wade Nation Gaming Clips says Portland didn't win a championship. WTF. Well, I think they tried. I agree with you that they could have had better players. They tried. Now, they tried and failed. And a lot of their deals, the CJ McCallum deal didn't work. I think you look at some of the contracts that are on their books now. Is Jeremy Grant somebody that's a success for the Portland Trailblazers?
I guess by some measure, but it's not.
That doesn't feel like it, though.
Yeah, it's not. When you brought in Jeremy Grant, you were like, okay, this is someone that Dame can really work with, and this could be a pick and roll nightmare for the defenses that we're playing. So yeah, I mean, has he been productive? Sure, but he's not been what you had hoped he'd be on the top end. And my main point with Portland is very simple. Dude, you had a guy in Damian Lillard that was all world. I mean, this is an all NBA player, multi-time all-star. You're talking about someone who, if he wanted to, can contend for scoring championships. This is someone who is excluding the championship, can be an all-timer. And I just didn't ever feel like Portland ever wanted to go all the way in. Yeah, that's great. You got Jerami Grant, and he's a great player. But Jerami Grant's not the guy, there was always that hesitation. And again, I think
agree.
You've said over the years, and I've always agreed with this, the Dame CJ pairing just never had legs to it. It just never sort of developed into, these guys have been playing together a while. This is going to really work now, because they're essentially playing the same role on the team. That's the problem, which brings me to my next point. That's why I like this for Milwaukee. Dame plays a very different role on the Milwaukee Bucks than Giannis does. Dame can take possessions off now because he plays with Giannis, which I also think was a big reason he ran into a lot of injury stuff. Dude, the guy was constantly playing a lot of minutes, and so then he'd get hurt, and then he'd miss time, and then he'd come back. We saw that cycle play out multiple times. So that's why I say, it ultimately for Portland, you can sit here and you can say, we missed our window with Dame and we didn't win a championship, and you can cry a river. You can do that, and I understand if you're upset about it. But ultimately, I do think you're in a great spot as an organization. Moving forward, you've been needing to do this. The reality of the situation is you should have traded Dame probably 2 years ago, and you had opportunities and you never did. And now we finally get it.
It's frustrating to go back and look at that 2018-19 year when Anthony Simons and Gary Trent Jr. were drafted. And, I mean, those teams should have been better. Terry Stotts, by the way, who was an assistant in Milwaukee, was the head coach with Dame in Milwaukee on that team. That's frustrating. How about a shout-out for our newest member, Paolo?
Let's go, Paolo.
What's up, Paolo? Good to see you. Thanks for joining the membership. Hit the join button. We have 2 levels of membership. You can join for $1.99 a month, which gets all your comments highlighted and read. For $9.99 a month, you get that, and you get into our exclusive members-only Instagram group. It's a really good group of dudes, so appreciate all of you that are members. Casey Anthony got away with it for $2. Phoenix and Portland got the best of this deal. I would agree with that. I think Portland in the long term, if they do this reset right, this is a good deal for them. Phoenix, there's no doubt. I think Phoenix is a far better team today than they were yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I think Milwaukee shot its shot. I mean, this was your best opportunity to keep Giannis. So I would agree with that.
If you're Giannis, I don't know how you don't sign the deal now. I understood it before this, but your organization is speaking to you through action. And I don't know how you don't repay them with a signature.
Yeah,
I just
would
don't
agree.
know how you don't.
I think you would hope that he would sign an extension in Milwaukee. We'll see. Mr. Downtown for $2. Blazer Scoot Henderson now needs a wingman to win. He does. He needs a guy that – and the sad thing is he needs a mentor. DeAndre Ayton is an abysmal teammate.
Yeah. He
is not a good teammate. I mean, it's a real –
yeah.
I don't love that move. I don't love that move for Portland at all. And now he's arguably – what a top two. I mean, he's their number one salary guy next to Jrue, and I think if Jrue Holiday gets moved, he's clearly their best offensive player.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of leader he is. Ryan Willie, what's up with you? Thanks for the $5. You're against Milwaukee because Wisconsin teams own the Chicago teams. Well, I mean, other than the fact that Miller Park, I mean, as long as the Brewers are in Milwaukee, which is not guaranteed to go on.
Right.
But Miller Park is Wrigley North. I think we all know that. I don't think Notre Dame fears Wisconsin at all.
Does anybody fear Wisconsin?
I don't think so.
Notre Dame, our mother.
And we routinely beat the hell out of the Bucks during the Jordan runs, so not really. I don't even hate Milwaukee. I used to road trip to Milwaukee almost every weekend. Go Admirals. Casey Anthony says, KD was easily the best player in those 2 championships, filling up the net with all those big shots in LeBron's face. he carried the Warriors. Go back and watch. Oh, no, I agree with that 100%.
I'm just saying that, and look, we haven't talked NBA for a lot of the new people here that found us on football. I'm a KD guy. I've been apologizing for KD for years, but there's no question that many people in NBA circles hold it over his head that he hasn't, like, that the Brooklyn situation didn't work out. Now he's in Phoenix, and can we win a champion? Like, he's got to right that wrong, if you will. And I agree. He did hit shot after shot in LeBron's face. He did carry that team. But the problem is Steph has won before you and after you, and you haven't done anything after Steph. That's the issue.
What do you say to Jimmy Butler today?
Keep doing you, bro. That's what I say. I say don't, because again, if you're Jimmy Butler, you're sitting here saying, okay, Dame to Milwaukee, the Bucks just got a lot better, but this is a team that we've beaten. And I think that the tough part is that, the Heat don't really have someone to keep up with Dame. I mean, obviously Jimmy can guard him, but the problem for the Heat is you don't have depth in the guard room, and that's the issue. I'm tired. You want to talk about a guy I'm tired of? I'm tired of hearing about Tyler Hero. I'm tired of seeing the shirtless workouts over the summer, and this guy's amazing. He's got to prove it. You need to show up in the playoffs and help this team, man.
I continue to say that's one of the worst contracts in the NBA. It's not tradable. He's making $27 million a year.
You're talking about a guy who wanted to be paid starters money and couldn't crack the starting lineup. I mean, like, what are we talking about?
And how long are they going to rely on Kyle Lowry? I mean, you have some really upside-down contracts on that roster, and
the issue is that you went and got Kyle Lowry when you should have been going to get Fred VanVleet, and now Fred's not even available because he's in Houston. That's the issue.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, let's see. Let's go back to because I know a lot of people were in today. I appreciate all the comments on the NBA. Let's see. Who was the first? And I'm going to try and get back to the top. I really am. Conference Commissioner Gumby was first.
Okay.
Lopes Fan Game was second. He said, like button casuals. Thank you. Conference Commissioner Gumby, how come they never talk about college football?
We've been doing NBA for so long, dude. I didn't know football was still a thing.
Football. That sounds familiar. That's,
True. Fine, Mom.
Wish they'd start with college football more. Any pack updates? You guys are haters. What's up, Kaufman? Tarrant County boy, how are you? Good to see you. Old Greg, lovely, lively bunch we have here this early. Let's go, Monty Casuals. Appreciate you guys. Ryan says Bucks will win an NBA title. Do you think Dame wins a championship in Milwaukee? Not with this roster. They're going to have to be busy at the deadline.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big question.
But dude, I think again, the injury thing's the biggest deal. That they can go out and help these two, and they can bolster the roster absolutely, and they need to do that. But again, it ultimately comes down to, are you healthy to go on a run? Because ultimately, that's all that matters. This team is going to make the playoffs, obviously, right? This team is going to beat the hell out of a lot of Eastern Conference teams this year. And the only question I have is, let's stop running these guys out. Or do you have the option to stop running them out for 35 a night? Let's run them out for 31, 32.
Bobby Portis becomes a very important player for the Bucks, because Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, we've talked about their injuries. Dame's missed a lot of time. Hell, Giannis. At what point does Giannis break down? I thought it was really smart of him not to play in the FIBAs. It's just going to be really... They have to stay healthy.
Yes.
They have to. But I love that they, the Jay Crowders, Malik Beasleys. I love the shooting that they have on that team. But, man, they are going to suffer, in my opinion. They are going to suffer without Jrue Holiday, because he was the guy. Green Street Utes, Portland sent him to Wisconsin instead of Miami. Did him dirty one last time. Did you do him dirty?
No, I think you sent him to a better situation. Honestly, I think, assuming Giannis signs the extension, you've sent him to a better situation. I have no problem saying that I think that it's a higher percentage bet to think that Milwaukee would get to the finals, not Miami. Because at some point, having fat ass Kyle Lowry as your point guard is going to come back to get you at some point.
Fat ass Kyle Lowry.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt, dude. Buddy is on the verge here, man.
Fat.
Awesome. All right, let's see. Salamini says you're not a KD guy. You're hating. See how that works? No, I
actually don't.
I don't get it.
Yeah, can you explain?
Yeah, Jimmy Otson, 365 Sports, go now. Okay. I mean, look, if you guys are if you're craving some football, there's other options out there. We'll be on college football in 27 minutes. Heavens to Betsy, we should talk about the biggest stories in sports here on the Monty Show. Maybe we take a breath and hit the buck shot.
Yeah, maybe, dude.
You guys are salty today. Finally, speaking of salty, there's a...
Is he in the chat?
No! Finally, there's a huge NBA story, and Salty Drunk's not in the chat, which is amazing to me. Cheers to you, Salty. BuckedUp.com, the official energy provider of the Monty Show. I say it every day with Buckshot, you guys. It'll help you think your way through really bad golf moments. Jake had a really tough round of golf today.
Oh.
I didn't.
Right.
What are you, nuts?
I had a terrible round of golf this morning, but I felt great doing it. Thanks to Bucked Up. The Buckshot works. Every day at this time on the show, we pop a Buckshot. Powers us through the show. I love those guys. Great local business. I like working with local businesses that build themselves from a little guy to a behemoth. There's no better example of that than Bucked Up. And I'll tell you, I take a Buckshot protein shake. I usually have one at least every day with my, 6-point creatine in it. I love the fact that I get whey protein isolate from Bucked Up. I love my collagen peptides. I will occasionally throw in some greens, depending on what I ate that day. But it always tastes good, and I'm always full. And that's the key to me losing weight. Again, we're 6 weeks away from Hawaii, man. I got to buckle down. Jake is just craving sugar left and right.
Dude, wow.
Our office suite every Wednesday brings in crumble cookies.
No.
It's impossible. It is impossible. Come on now. BuckedUp.com. Use the promo code Monty20 to save 20% off of your order at checkout. Make sure you tell them you heard about it on the Monty Show. Mike Smith. What's up, Mike Smith? You changed your picture. Look at that. Monty Show doing Salty Dirty, pissing off the Aussie. Salty Drunk is our resident Australian listener, and he loves his NBA, and it's sad he's not here. Stutterers, what's up with you, man? Good to see you. Salty is late to the chat now. Yes, he is.
Seriously.
3 p.m. is too early for him. It is morning in Australia.
Yeah.
The Tater Man. The biggest story in sports is not Lillard to the Bucks. It is by far. We all knew he was going to get traded soon. Clemson leaving the ACC in 3 weeks is the news of the day.
Please.
Nobody says Clemson's leaving the ACC in 3 weeks.
My fucking ass.
Come on now. Come on. Let's be better than that. Old Greg, we finally have NBA and everyone wants football. Please go watch it. The last 5 of Monty's show for college foosball if you really can't wait 20 minutes. It's amazing. Tarrant County boy, Salty scraps. He does. Jeff Woodworth, Salty needs to leave his number in the chat so we can text him when NBA talk is on. Amazing. Daniel Dixon says, had my buckshot today. Isn't it wild? And I don't know what your guys' experience is, but it's wild for me. If I don't have a buckshot, I don't have my A game.
Mm-hmm.
I pop a buckshot, I feel way better, man.
Yeah.
Katie Rader says, afternoon, everyone. Wreck 'em. Pew, pew.
Yeah.
Are Texas Tech fans happy Tyler Shuck is no longer an option? That's one you should ask. Jim Choi says, bucked up, baby. Indeed it is. Salamini, Jake, why are you repping Oklahoma State?
It's not, see, again, it's not really
Salmon.
orange, dude. It's salmon, bro. You know what I mean? I understand how it could be confusing, and
it's
everything.
Salmon.
But I prefer to call this color salmon, not necessarily Okie State orange.
Tarrant County boy says, Salty getting my surf and turf.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Jim Choi, you guys read the Athletic article on your mark in the Big 12? We did. Alex Rea, did Clemson find $500 million lying around that no one was aware of? We'll talk about the Clemson. It's a giant nothing. It is a giant nothing. Jim Choi, NBA is fantastic.